Hello, welcome to episode 12 of the Intern's Oddities from Around the World. Today, we're going to be continuing with part 2 of Journey to the West. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, as you may remember from last time, we started off, talking about the monkey born from stone monkey, and the curtain fall cave where they live and on the other side of the waterfall. That's how he became the Monkey King. And then, you remember everything, I'm sure. And if not, you can go back and watch the video. But anyways, when we ended, we had ended right where the heavens had um a bit of a proposal for Sun Wukong. They were tired of his shenanigans and all the stuff he was doing, so they thought they could tame him by offering him a title in heaven and a job. So they gave him a heavenly title, brought him up to the rank of God, essentially, in his own way. Not as powerful as any of the others, but they attempted to appease him by giving him a godly rank. And so when he got back home and they told him about this, he decided to go to heaven, see what was up. They gave him his godly rank, and they're like, "Hey, buddy, with this rank, though, we do need you to do a job. We're gonna need you to stay here in heaven and help us out with some stuff." So this was their way of stopping him from causing all the chaos he had been causing. And they thought that if they gave him a title and let him stay in heaven, then he wouldn't be on earth terrorizing everyone else, right? And that was their thought process. So anyways, they gave him a title and they were like, "Hey, could you we got a garden over here with some peach trees. Could you just guard these peaches for us? Make sure nothing bad happens to them, make sure they grow properly, all that stuff." So Sun Wukong is like, "Sure, okay." So at first he's enjoying it. You know, they take him to the garden and they introduce him to the other people and the other gods and goddesses and all that stuff, and the other immortals that live in heaven. So they introduced him to everybody, brought him over to this garden, and asked him to guard it. So he starts, protecting the garden, keep out any monsters or enemies of any sort. Make sure the flies don't get to the peaches, basically. He was essentially a glorified scarecrow. They had turned him into a glorified scarecrow. And at first, he was like, "Oh yeah, this is nice. I don't have to do much. I can just, relax a little and finally take a break." So, he was enjoying his time in the peach garden, eating peaches on a daily basis. He was eating the peaches every day. And one day he was hiding out in the trees and a woman came by. And, you know, Sun Wukong, being the trickster that he is, he decided he would scare this woman. So he he hops down out of the tree. He's all like, "Boo." He spooks her a little bit. Not too bad, but he spooks her a little bit. Just saying hi, introducing himself. And he tells this woman all about how he's the Monkey King and he's immortal and all this other stuff. So, because the first layer was his 72 earthly transformations that he learned from the the monks, Bodhisattva. You know, that was where he got his first layer of immortality, the 72 transformations. And then his second layer of immortality came when he was down in the underworld and had to fight some of those guys. they yeah, the underworld tried to kidnap him, essentially. And so he erased his name from all their books, the book of not being alive anymore, trying to be careful of the censors, you know. But anyways, so he wrote, he took his name out of the book and took out the names of all the other monkeys that he knew. So not only did he make himself immortal, but he made all his monkey friends immortal that time. Yeah. Fun thing. So then anyways, then he went back home and haven't called him up, and that's where we're at now. So anyways, he told this lady all this stuff, he told this lady a story and everything. And she says that she is there because she needs to gather some peaches for the god's banquet. And he's like, "Oh, these peaches are so lovely. I will help you gather some peaches. Thank you." So she's like, "Oh, thank you so much. I could really use the help." So he helps her gather some peaches, and while they're walking around gathering the peaches, the lady starts talking a little bit more about this banquet of the gods. And she's like, every once in a while, the gods, they all get together, they throw a party, they throw this grand ball, like something from like Cinderella or something like that, like that kind of lavish party, big lavish party. Everyone comes around, they eat, they get married, they drink, typical party stuff. So, anyways, she's telling Sun Wukong all about this party and how the gods get together to, have a party and drink their elixir of immortality. Wait, what? Yeah, they drink an elixir of immortality that prolongs their life by 1,000 years, I believe it was. Every time they drink their elixir. And so Sun Wukong, obviously interested in more layers of immortality than just two, he's like, huh, so what is it that makes this elixir of theirs grant them such a long lifespan, nearing basically becoming immortals? And you know what she says? She's like, "Oh, it's these peaches. That's why I need these peaches because this is what they use in the elixir. They drink peach juice, essentially." He's like, "Whoa, wait a minute. So these peaches grant immortality? He's been eating these peaches for weeks." So now he's got a third layer of immortality. That's how Sun Wukong became immortal for the third time. So yeah, yep. So anyways, he helps her gather the peaches and all this, and he's like, "Could I potentially get an invitation to this party?" And she's, basically she's like, "Well, I'm not really allowed to do that. I can't just make that decision. I'm not allowed to extend an invitation to this party. That's not her place to do so." So he accepts that, and he's like, "Okay," and he lets her go. He doesn't bother her anymore. He helps her gather some peaches, and she goes on her way. So after they're done with the peaches and all that, they have their party. And guess who shows up to their party? None other than Sun Wukong himself. He was getting tired of guarding the peach garden. It was fun for a while, but now it was starting to get a little boring and repetitive. It was the same thing day in and day out, just sitting there, wandering through the trees, eating peaches. Not much to it. So, anyways, sorry. So, it's 4 in the morning over here. Be nice. I'm allowed to yawn at 4 in the morning. So, anyways, he goes over and he crashes their party. Now, as you can imagine, the gods are not very happy about this, as Sun Wukong jumps into their party out of nowhere, and he's like, "Ah, the Monkey King has arrived! I am the Monkey King! I'm here to have a party and enjoy my time!" And so, he starts running around doing his monkey stuff, and he ends up drinking their elixir of immortality, thus granting him another layer of immortality. This is like the fourth time dude's gotten immortal. Oh gosh. Now how are you gonna beat him up? How do you defeat someone who's immortal four times over? He got him. So let's do a brief summary. So the first layer was the 72 transformations. Second layer, when he went to the underworld and took his name out of all their books. Third, when he ate the peaches in the garden. And the fourth layer just now, when he drank their elixirs of immortality. So, as you can probably imagine, the gods are getting kind of sick and tired of Sun Wukong at this point. So they're like, "Hey, buddy, you can't be crashing our party, and that's not cool. Go back to your garden." But Sun Wukong, he doesn't want to go back to the peach garden. He's tired of guarding the peach garden. He wants something different. He wants something better. And this is where I think he starts to catch on to their little plan. Because you see, the gods only gave him a title and had him guard the peach garden because they wanted to get rid of him. That was basically their way of, I guess you could say, imprisoning him, but more of a mental prison, if that makes sense. It's very deep, but essentially they were tricking him with a false title that had no meaning. And the peach garden was just where they wanted him to stay so that he wouldn't be bothering other people anymore. And I think this is where he started to figure it out. So he's upset now because they don't want him at their party. They're like, "Hey, you got to get out of here. You can't be at our party. This party is only for gods and goddesses. You can't be here." So they try to kick him out of the party. So Sun Wukong is like, "No, I'm not leaving. I like it here. I'm having fun." And, everyone's getting real upset with Sun Wukong at this point. And the Jade Emperor, he's kind of digging it though. Like the Jade Emperor is like, I like his sense of freedom and his free spirit. But, even if he likes it, he can't tolerate this because he is, crashing their party. So the the Jade Emperor told Sun Wukong that he needs to go back to the Peach Garden, just like everyone else had been telling him. And still, even with the Jade Emperor himself, Sun Wukong would still not listen and go back willingly. So he ran around acting a fool at their party for a few more minutes, and then he ran away and he got upset and went back home to his monkey people. Well, when he got back down there, they were like, "Where have you been? You've been gone for hundreds of years, master. Why? Why have you been gone for so long?" And so he tells them about his whole story, about how they gave him a title, but he was nothing more than a glorified stable boy, and he was very upset with the way the gods had treated him and tried to deceive him. So he decided to come back down. But the gods could not have him running around causing chaos again. So they started a war. The gods decided to attack Sun Wukong and send down their best soldiers to apprehend him. Ooh, this is gonna be a big fight. Really, really big fight. So the Jade Emperor, who, from my understanding, is essentially like the god of all the other gods, the Godfather, essentially. Let's call him the Godfather. But anyways, the Jade Emperor sends down his armies and his commanders. He sends down 12 of his best immortal generals with over 100,000 immortal soldiers from heaven. So, sounds like heaven's got this one in the bag, right? This is Sun Wukong you're fighting, by the way. So, oh, yeah, also, I forgot to mention, before he escaped heaven, he was uh, briefly caught by Lao Tzu at one point, and they tried to put him in a furnace, and he was already immortal, so he wouldn't burn, and the flames granted him yet another layer of immortality. So, anyways, now that I've told you about that, back to our current story. So, dude's got like 5 layers of immortality now. So, anyways, they send all these generals to try and apprehend Sun Wukong, and guess who wins? That's right, Sun Wukong wins again. They go through these fights for days and days and weeks and weeks, and eventually Sun Wukong is fighting with Erlang Shen for a very long time. So let's go ahead and change our photo. I had a couple of good photos of Erlang Shen. This is the Jade Emperor, but this is I didn't get any very, this is like a highly stylized photo of Erlang Shen, and he has this wolf with him, as you can see down here. He's got this little wolf with him, and that, I believe, is actually in the game when when you meet him later on. I've seen some videos, and but I'm not gonna say too much. But he has a wolf that he fights with that helps him out a lot, and this is his spear. His weapon of choice is a spear, and that's just like a vague general idea of what he might look like, you know. But anyways, so Erlang Shen versus Sun Wukong, and their battle continues for weeks, and it is so epic. Sun Wukong in his 72 transformations. Guess who else has transformations? Erlang Shen. Erlang Shen has transformations as well. So in the story, they're like, they're chasing each other, and eventually it gets to a point where Sun Wukong is starting to get tired. Because I mean, think about it though. It's only fair that Sun Wukong gets a little bit tired eventually, because he's been fighting like 100,000 foot soldiers from heaven, and 12 of their strongest immortal generals. Yes, I said immortal. Immortals versus immortals. What's going to happen here? So he's been fighting all their generals for like weeks now, and he finally starts to get a little bit tired. So he tries to run away and recover some of his stamina. So he, transforms into like a bird or a golden cicada or something like that, and one of his 72 transformations, and he flies away. He starts to try to fly away, but guess what? Erlang Shen has transformations too. He transforms into a bird and follows right after him. And then Sun Wukong, he's like, oh no, I didn't know this man was going to be able to do this. So Sun Wukong keeps running away, and he tries to turn into a fish and hide in the river. And he thought he got away for a minute, but then Erlang Shen was like, wait a minute. I see a fish over there swimming against the current, swimming in the opposite direction of all the other fish. Why? Why is that fish swimming in the opposite direction? And that was all it took. He knew it was Sun Wukong and he chased him down. So they keep up their battle for a bit. And for anyone wondering if anyone has actually played Black Myth, the video game, this is the fight that you actually get to play in the intro for the video game. This is actually the fight that you actually get to play this fight in the opening of Black Myth. That's the fight that you actually get to play. And it is truly epic and amazing, and they did a wonderful job with it. But anyways, they're doing their little fight, and long story short, eventually Sun Wukong is able to escape. And, he gets away, and Erlang Shen has to go back to heaven and say that he was unable to capture Sun Wukong at this current point in time. And over the course of the battle, Sun Wukong was able to defeat 100,000 foot soldiers, as well as 12, yes, I said 12 immortal generals and gods. So he's getting a pretty good track record at this point. But, the gods, they can't be having all this. So they're not giving up quite yet. So the gods call in for help from one of their other friends. We're finally here. So the gods call in help from Big Daddy Buddha. Buddha himself. And a lot of other stuff happened, but I'm trying not to rant too long because I could probably talk about this for months. Oh, wait, no, not probably. I have been talking about this for months. But I'm trying to keep this to a reasonable amount of time without making too many parts. So I am going to have to skip a lot. I mean, keep in mind, this story has been retold hundreds of times through many different interpretations and translations. And I mean, just as an example, they got like 4 different names for Tripitaka, the Tang monk. Like, it's Shuangjin. They got so many names for some of these characters have so many different names, it can get a little bit confusing. But I'm trying to keep it as concise as I can while still getting as many of the important details in there. But anyways, so by the time this is all over, blah blah blah, a bunch of stuff happens. It's a big chaotic warfare. But eventually they ask Buddha for help. And Buddha, in his great all-knowing wisdom, Buddha decides to talk to Sun Wukong. Eventually, they get Sun Wukong back into heaven, and he talks to Buddha, and they're having a little conversation. And Sun Wukong is just like, Buddha, I don't see why you're against me. I don't feel like I'm asking for too much. All I want is a little bit of freedom. And these gods and goddesses, they keep attacking me. I just want to live. That's all I want. I want to live my own life and be free. That's all I wanted. And Buddha makes him an offer. Buddha says, Sun Wukong, if you are able to jump out of the palm of my hand and jump into the heavens, jump into outer space, then I will actually grant you the title of heaven equaling great sage and make you the new Jade Emperor. Well, Sun Wukong, he had already been calling himself heaven equaling great sage since they gave him the title in heaven. That was the title that was basically the title that they had given him in heaven. So now that he's known as the heaven equaling great sage, the Buddha made him the offer, and he's like, dude, if you can jump out of the palm of my hand into the galaxy, outer space, then I will make you the new Jade Emperor. And as we can probably tell by now, Sun Wukong has a bit of an ego problem. He's a bit egotistical. So, of course, in his hubris, he clearly says, "Of course I can do that. I will take your challenge." And so, Sun Wukong step Buddha enlarges his palm, and Sun Wukong steps into the palm of Buddha. And he looks around, bends his legs, and jumps as high as he can. And he jumps into the outer space and he finds the five pillars of creation. And even to prove a point that he was there, you got to leave your mark, right? So he's like, I made it. I made it to the five pillars of creation, and I'm good. So I'm going to go ahead and leave my mark here so he'll know I was here. So he goes over to one of the pillars, and Sun Wukong, being Sun Wukong, he decides to, well, there's no polite way to put this, but he decides to urinate on one of the pillars. He just, yeah, he just urinates on one of the pillars, and so it's got that strong ammonia smell, to put it politely. So after all this, he goes back down to Buddha, jumps back down into his hand, and he's like, "Buddha, I have defeated your challenge. I have bested you. Now make me the Jade Emperor. Make me the new Jade Emperor." And Buddha, and this is one of the beautiful things about Buddha. You can clearly tell that he's a little angry and frustrated with what has just happened. Very, very irritated. But he maintains his composure, and he very calmly looks down at Monkey and says, "Oh, but Monkey King, are you so sure that you have bested me?" And Sun Wukong turns around and he smells something in the air. Something that smells like ammonia. A very urine-like smell. So he turns around and he sees where he wrote his name in urine on one of the five pillars. Turns out those five pillars were not the end of the world. They weren't outer space or heaven or any of that. The five pillars were Buddha's fingers. And as soon as he realizes what he's done, Sun Wukong immediately tries to jump out of Buddha's palm, but Buddha's too fast for him. Buddha closes his palm, smacks down on Sun Wukong, crumbles him up into a rock, and buries him under a mountain. He literally buried this monkey in a mountain of rock. Like he buried him in stone once again from whence he came. And that is where Sun Wukong will stay for the next 500 years while he has to think about what he's done and how he's been behaving. Sun Wukong was able to defeat the Jade Emperor himself, Lao Tzu, and over 100,000 immortal soldiers from heaven, and even Erlang Shen, one of heaven's most distinguished generals. And he was able to defeat all these people, but he was outsmarted by Buddha. Like, just wow. He did all this only to be defeated by Buddha himself. Bravo. Bravo. And that is all the time we have for today. We went a little bit over our usual time, even. But that is the story of Sun Wukong versus Heaven. Next week, I will introduce you all to a monk known as Tripitaka, Shuangjin, and the Tong monk. As I have stated before, there are many, 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 many different translations and variations of Journey to the West. And as a result, some of these stories may at times contradict each other or even go so far as to have different names in different translations. So, if any of that gets a little confusing, I apologize, and I will do my best to try to use the same translation when I am continuing these stories that I am sharing. So next time, I will be personally referring to him as either the Tong monk or Tripitaka for the most part. However, if I do mention a name Shuangjin, that is also the monk. Although we will get into that one on the next episode. And we will get into this monk's backstory before we finally get to the beginning of Journey to the West. Oh yeah, that's right. We we haven't even started the real story yet. We haven't even started the real story. These last two things that I've gone through, the last 2 weeks, these are just the prologue. These are just the prologue. Oh, there's so much. It's 100 chapters. What we've gone through so far is maybe the first 7 or 8 chapters, if I had to guess. Like it's there's a lot. But thank you for hanging out with me while I talk about all this because I absolutely love the lore and the story behind all this. It is such a rich and interesting lore. But I'm kind of starting to rant now, so I'm going to go ahead and go. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you next week. Stay uncanny.